All right, welcome in. There it is. Power Hour music, little intro music we got. I'm Rick Game, and that right there, that's Joe Idoni. And for the next hour, we are going to walk you through everything about the American Express market for Jock Market. Joe, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I am great. I have myself a good little week, fired up to talk some American Express and be back here for another hour with you, bud. Let's roll.
I love it. We were actually, we weren't late. We were right on time, but we were actually so deep into talking about some picks for some plays for this week. I looked down and I was like, oh my God, it's 8:15. I'm going to press the live button, which is phenomenal. A couple of notes, drop the questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want, drop them in the comments. We'll go through and get as many of those as possible over the course of the next hour. Remember that for the next 45 minutes, this IPO phase is open. It is available. I'm going to run some graphics down at the bottom for, big winners last week, big losers last week. And if you want to get in on the action and you have not taken advantage of the deposit bonus yet, Power20 is your code. That gets you a $20 deposit bonus, which, Joe, as far as I know, that's the best bonus out there. We got the best one.
We do. Our guys hooked us up over there. So make sure you use that and take full advantage of that free $20. As you can see rolling across the bottom of the screen, $20 can go a long way in the jock market if you choose wisely.
I've been making, I don't want to say making the mistake, but I've been saying a lot things like there is a lot of money to be made in the jock market. And I firmly believe that. However, I always have been trying to caveat it after that by saying, but you don't need a lot to start. You don't need a lot to start. You get a couple of dollars for a share. You're talking about a $20 deposit bonus. Chris Kirk was $3.52 last week. So you would have got what, 5, almost 6 shares of him with $20. And he finished at like $18 a share. It would have been absolutely phenomenal. So there is no need for a huge investment, or you can just dump a couple $1,000 into the IPO, right? Or into the market.
Hey, whatever floats your boat, man.
Whatever floats your boat. Well, apparently, Jock Market is floating a lot of boats, Joe, because we got news. We got news just a couple of hours ago that Jock Market passed $2 million in total trades. Which, first of all, golf clap, like that is phenomenal stuff. And to put this into perspective, it took 4 months to get the first $1 million in trades. And what did it take for the second million?
25 days. Yeah, 23, 24, 25 days. Unbelievable. Awesome. Happy for them. It just shows that the concept is being proven right in front of our eyes. And this is they've been out there for 5 months. It's like half a year. So I can't imagine where this is going in the near future. And hopefully you and I are along for that ride.
For sure. And I think that, one of the, when we were playing this in the summer and some of the questions that we would get is like, oh, I want to see more people. I want to see more trades. And we just kept saying, go play. The best way to grow this, the best way to make it good for everyone, the best way to get some of these features that you want implemented is play. Like that, That is the validation for all of this. And it seems like people have heard the call and they are joining us, which is absolutely awesome. I'm trying to think. There was a couple other things that we wanted to hit before we jumped into this kind of full on. And we're going to recap last week's Sony Open. We are going to obviously turn our attention to the American Express market, but there was a really great topic on Twitter just a few hours ago, Joe, that I would love for you to dive into in regards to, some of these questions that we get, because this is still a very, very new concept. If you're here watching this, you are on the forefront of something really cool, but there are a few things that pop up, and one of them popped up this morning, or this afternoon, and I thought you did a great job of getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I did my best to answer it. Dave, our guy from Jock Market, chimed in and did an even better job with sort of an infographic as well, but more or less, the question was, I had shares of Brendan Steele last week. And first of all, congrats. Nice. That was a great pick. But he was sort of confused when somebody else chimed in and was like, I had Steele too. And more or less, he said, I don't understand how you had him when I bought those shares of Brendan Steele. And the answer is really, like, my answer was, think of it like the actual stock market, in that you're not the only one who has shares of Tesla and Disney and all these different companies. There are a number of shares out there for every golfer. I don't know that exact number, but for instance, let's say it's 100 shares of steel. So if you buy 5 of those shares, there's still 95 other shares out there available for anyone else to buy. And once all 100 are filled up, that's when they start to tick away from the lowest bid and it moves up the price a little bit. So from my understanding, that's how it works. If you want to go back and check out that thread, I think I retweeted Dave's comment, which is a very easy sort of tell it all in a picture infographic that does a great job of explaining it as well.
And that's perfect. It's at Torpix is where you can find Joe. And the question from Cole, actually, I was just scrolling through the chat. He actually had a similar question. So hopefully we just answered that. And to piggyback onto the rest of your question, Cole, this IPO phase, this initial public offering is going to close around 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. So you're getting all your bids in right now, and around 9 o'clock, not exactly 9 o'clock, usually a couple minutes before, that market's going to close and all of those shares are going to be allocated. And then the IPO is over, and then we enter live trading. So now, as the tournament goes on, whether you want to watch 3 holes, 6 holes, 70 holes before you make a trade, you can do that. You can see what others are asking for their shares of golfers, and you can put out offers. You can put in bids and try to buy some shares. And it's really just a really fun concept. And then Joe, this is another comment that I thought was phenomenal here. Well, before I get to that, Donnie Baseball, who I think was on Will McGirt last week, and we gave him a little bit of grief for
Donnie
is back. He wants to know if Jock Market will be at 10 million by next week. And Brian says, Jock Market couldn't have done it without you guys. That's not true. Jock Market could not have done it without you guys, right? Could not have done it without everybody in the chat. Could not have done it with everybody in the market. And you guys are certainly on the ground floor of something really cool. And then I had a question here for you, Joe, as we transition into, it's not really a question, but it's a comment from Brian, as we transition into our Sony Open recap. And he's talking about the long shots. Over the last couple of years at the American Express, we've seen Andrew Landry win. We have seen Adam Long win. Now, we don't have cash market data from those events, but imagine what their IPO prices would have been in return for what their final price would have been.
Totally, yeah. And I talked about this earlier this week. 6 of the last 10 winners have gone off at 80 to 1 plus at the American Express. So it's definitely a tournament that lends itself to the long shots. But here's the thing. What is a long shot in Jock Market? Because the odds markers, we talked about this, the odds makers aren't setting the price. The ownership isn't setting the price. DraftKings isn't setting the price. You're setting the price. So you guys out there are setting. So there could be someone that's 80 to 1 that could be really high up because he's a very popular pick this week. Then again, you could have guys that are more established names that maybe don't have as much recent popularity that sort of slide down, and maybe they're 40 to 1 on the odds boards, but maybe in Jock Market in terms of pricing and IPO price, they end up being a long shot opportunity this week. So it's very unique and different, and you got to kind of think about it that way.
This is why we were late. We were talking about this specific thing before we went live, where sentiment is determined freely by this or wholly by this free market. Because Joe is absolutely right. Most weeks, odds makers are going to set the prices that you pay, or a fantasy site of your choice is going to set the price that you pay. Here in the Jock Market, you're setting the price. So when you start thinking about golfers who happen to be less popular for whatever reason, because of their Ryder Cup, European Ryder Cup players. Ian Poulter seems to be always undervalued in situations like this. Patrick Reed. And then on the flip side, the very popular, Tiger Woods. I don't even know if we've had Tiger Woods in a cash market. I guess we have, maybe PGA Championship.
Masters. He was in there for Masters.
Okay. So that, and guys like Ricky Fowler, who are always going to be more popular because the sentiment is so truly involved in the Jock Market. It's unbelievable. I have the data from last week, Joe.
Let's see it.
I have the data from all weeks, of course. This is absolutely free. If you want to go check this out, it's on RickRunGood.com. Go to PGA Tools, go down to Free Tools, and click on Jock Market. And I've been compiling all of the cash market data since Jock Market started doing cash markets every single week. And what I'm showing you right now is the Sony Open, and I've got it sorted by final payout. And Kevin Na Joe, who I think we actually mentioned
We did.
last week, yeah, and we said, oh, this might be a good spot for him. Closed IPO at $4.45. Final payout $25. So that, if you're counting at home, $20.55 profit per share, a 461% ROI. And this board is peppered with long shots, cheap stocks that turned into blue chips.
Totally. And Kevin Na kind of fits perfectly into that mold that we just spoke about, of guys that are established, that maybe are a little bit older, that maybe the new hype and public sentiment around them isn't so elevated and new and fresh in your mind, which gets you excited about buying shares of them. Kevin Na is a great example. I'll just share with you guys the player that you and I were talking about before we kicked off, and it was Paul Casey.
Yeah.
Seems to be very quiet on Paul Casey this week. As you mentioned, Rick, you think it's a great setup and course fit this week for him. And he's one of those guys that kind of reminds me, like I was saying, that I had shares of Sergio the past 2 weeks where they're still very good. They can top 20 any week, but they seem to be a little bit forgotten about. And sometimes you can catch some value in this particular market on guys like that.
People don't like Sergio. I'll tell you what, I like guys who can make me money. And Sergio has been that, especially Joe, over the course of the past couple of weeks. So keep that in mind. I mean, these are very, very fluid prices. Looking at it again at last week, Chris Kirk goes from $3.52 to $18. Brendan Steele, who we chatted on before, $3.45 to $15. So there's plenty of value there. But even some of the more expensive golfers, I'm going to sort this by the final IPO price and see who went out as the most expensive. And it was Webb. Webb was $12.50. And you and I sat here last week, Joe, about this time, and we said, wow, is he going to be able to pay that off? What is he going to have to do? Sure enough, $16 payout, $3.50 per share. Webb Simpson does it again.
Totally. Yeah. It seemed almost too easy, even though he was the highest priced guy. When you sort of correlate that with the odds boards and the odds to finish top 5 and all this kind of stuff, he was able to do it, and he came through. And actually, I was very impressed with Webb because it seemed like a lot of the week stuff just wasn't dropping for him, and he almost didn't have his best stuff, but he just grinded. And had it not been for an errant second shot on 18 on Sunday, he could have very well found himself in that playoff.
He certainly could have. I'm gonna throw it over to a comment from Chad here, your partner in crime. He says monitoring the activity tab is a good way to see who is paying what for a player. That is a great point, Joe. The using all of the aspects of the app, right? The activity, being able to turn on your notifications, things like that become critical in especially this part of the jock market, where we are now probably 30 minutes out from this IPO closing.
Totally. Yeah. And we touched on it before, but we should say it again. The best tip that I've gotten on Jock Market since I started playing originally came from you, and that's turn those notifications on so that you know right away when your current bid has been outpaced and you no longer have shares. That money immediately is back and funded back into your active account and balance. So you're free to put that on another player. If you still feel confident in that particular golfer, throw a couple more bucks on him and bid whatever you want, man. You set the target price. So you are your own stockbroker.
You are your own stockbroker. I like that. Fire away on those questions and comments. Let us know who you are targeting for this week, or let us know who you're not targeting, and maybe we'll talk about them, and maybe that price will go up. This is like the reverse. You could like reverse this, right? Like if someone's like, oh, I don't know, Doug Gim this week. And I'm like, oh, Doug Gim's interesting. And then you see him jump up $2. So you can, play with the chat a little bit, see what happens here. I'm going to pull up our current American Express market, and we're going to get our first look at what some of these prices are. And I want to get your initial reactions on this, Joe. So here we go. The highest priced golfer as we speak at $8.03 is Scotty Scheffler. Tony Finau, $7.51. Your favorite, according to odds makers, Patrick Cantlay, is $6, and Patrick Reed, $5.85. Rounding out the top five, a name I know you love, Joe, Brooks Koepka, $5.55. So we can talk through some of these guys. I'm a big Scotty Scheffler fan, Joe, and I want to get your thoughts on this. He's phenomenal. I have been very surprised at the amount of ownership that we expect on him in DFS purposes, and also that is obviously translating to his current IPO price because he is our most expensive golfer at the moment.
Yeah, very bullish on Scotty, not only this season, but this week. He is my top pick in the betting markets. I'd be surprised if he closes sort of in the top 3, I suppose, here in terms of the IPO, but we'll see how that goes over the next 30 minutes or so. But, good finish last year. Seems like a great course fit for him. And just as soon as we had the ROM withdrawal, this thing kind of opened right up and the floodgates open on all of these guys. I know he was one of the more popular guys sitting there, but back to Brooks. You talked about him. I got to speak about him. I don't know this week, and I'm a huge Brooks supporter, but I love these PGA Tour press conferences. And I don't know how much you get to watch them because you're busy doing content during that time.
You know what the dorky thing is, Joe? I read the transcripts. I don't watch them. I go on later and I grab the transcripts and I read those.
You know what I get a lot of, Rick, when you're watching it is body language.
Right. Yeah. I miss all of that.
Brooks that I know he said before is that he works his way sort of into a sweat, meaning he likes to play a couple tournaments before he gets his swing back. He said that he's very much just using this kind of as a test week and to see how things go and to get a gauge and a needle of where his game is at right now, which leads me to believe he's not really sure where his game's at right now. And I think there's reason to be sort of unsure. That said, there's a price here for Brooks Koepka, and if it's there, I'm going to grab it. Best believe it.
Oh, boy. All right, I'm going to make a mental note. He's $5.55 right now. I know for sure he's not going to finish there over his last 4 Jock markets, so he's lost 80% ROI at Mayakoba. He missed the cut there. He was great at both the Masters and in Houston. The CJ Cup, he was a small 27% loser, and I imagine we are going to see the most expensive version of Brooks Koepka. Maybe not. No, I think we will. I'm going to say we see the most expensive version of Brooks Koepka we've ever seen. Currently, $8.58 was the most expensive. There was a good comment in the chat. Oh, here's one. Let me pull this up here. Brett wants to know, can we have access to this tool? No. Sorry.
Exclusive. Yep.
Exclusive for us. We're happy to be able to show it to you and share it with you, but no, you may not have access to it. You have to come right here and watch the Power Hour every single week, and then go get the data from RickRunGood.com if you want to mess around with it. Colin does ask a really good question here, and Joe, I'd love for you to tackle this one. So the difference between the free contest and the paid contest, because Colin is currently in an area that is not available for him to play cash markets, but he is still able to play Jock Market, and he is still able to win some cashola.
Yeah, totally. So there are prizes available in the free contest. How that works is I like to think about it as almost like a poker tournament. Like if you've ever played in a poker tournament where everyone shows up, there's 60 players there, and you all start with the same amount of chips. Obviously, it dwindles down to whoever wins has the most chips in the end. So that's a very similar model here. Everyone starts with the same amount of chips. You can allocate them on whatever golfers you want. You can spend them all in the IPO. You can hold some back for as the tournament goes, but they pay out all kind of prizes for this. For first, I think they last place also. So they do cool things, give you an opportunity to do prizes. And if you are not able to do a cash market where you are currently at, stay tuned. It is coming. The nationwide sweep of Jock Market is on the horizon. So stay patient. Get your feet wet in those free contests. Maybe win a little money. And that way, when it becomes available, you'll be able to rake in some real dough.
That's right. And it's really about creating a valuable portfolio. So that's how you are being Joe nailed it. The poker analogy is one I had not thought of. That's perfect. At the end of all of it, who's got the most chips? I really like the way that you put that. Okay. Let's jump into a little bit more on this week, Joe. And I'm going to start with this question here. Who are some more recent burns that you're high on this week? So if I pull up the data from last week, I can tell you exactly who burned everybody last week, and you can tell me if any of these guys are going to move the needle for you. So literally the biggest losers from last week in terms of share price were Sungjae Im, whose IPO price was $9.88. He finished at $2.58. He did make the cut, but not much after that. Abraham Answer, $8.50 down to $1.44. He missed the cut. So those are the two that I imagine people are going to be wrestling a bit, Joe, trying to figure out if they should go back to them.
So obviously Answer is an intriguing one this week. I don't necessarily mind the miscut. I had a ticket on him last year at this event and gave me quite a sweat. I believe finished second. I had Cameron Smith last week, which was a big burn on my end. He's obviously not playing this week. I have interest in Sungjae, but it burned me at the Central weeks ago. I'm interested in this week, and I wonder your take on it, Rick. And it's Tony Finau. When I listened to his presser, he seemed in great spirits. He actually spoke about how he got his has very fond memories of the stadium course. He cashed a $20,000 check in a minor league event here, which was like the biggest money he had ever made in golf, and loved it. And he was able to buy himself dinner that night and all this fun stuff. So he has very good memories, seems in great spirits, played in that Pro-Am today. What do you think about Tony?
I am notoriously very wrong often on Tony Finau. However, Tony doesn't get enough credit for how many fairways he hits. I think the idea is, okay, he bombs it around there. But what we've seen from him, from guys like Gary Woodland, from even Cam Champ at times, is if he doesn't need to tap into all of that, he can hit, 3-iron off the tee. He can be exact. He can avoid the big number. I think this is a pretty good spot for him. Now, I will endorse the guy who was the big loser last week, the Sungjae Ims of the world. Sungjae lost 3 strokes on approach last week. That's something he rarely does. You imagine he gets back to his usual positive. I mean, he's gained strokes on approach in 7 of his last 10. So I imagine we get back to that version of Sungjae Im, and he rebounds. And I'm going to pull up and see if I can find what his price is at the moment, and we'll see. $4.99 at this current moment.
Yep, that's what I'm seeing too.
So last week he closed at $988. It was by far the most expensive he's ever been, and I don't think we're going to get anywhere near that this week, right? I think there's a lot of jaded shareholders, so to speak, out there that are not happy with Sungjae's performance.
Yeah, and it's always tough when your guy's just losing a ton of strokes. Like, he never loses strokes approach, but the week before, crushed it on approach and tee to green and just wasn't able to putt. And I think there's something to what you said about just being so many people feel maybe a little bit burned who had Sungjae last week and lost a little bit on him. May present an opportunity at a good course that may be a little less popular this week, which is sometimes how golf rolls. Like, you're on a guy one week, everyone's on him. Of course, he doesn't play well. Everyone jumps off the train, and there he is on Sunday coming down the stretch.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's a couple of quick kind of just not even strategies, kind of logistic questions I want to go through here. So, best way to track players. Yes, we've been mentioning a leaderboard for a favoriting option to Jock Market. I know they're working hard on getting that added as well. And also with shorting would be fun. Someone asked what shorting is. Think about that in terms of you making money when someone goes wrong. So if you see Sungjae Im is $10 and you're like, oh my God, no way, he's going to crash and burn this week, you could actually make the difference if his stock price goes down, which would create a fun little dynamic. And then there's chaos. One here. Chaos. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And then here's one that you mentioned earlier, Joe. But just to recap, if you bid more than a current price, you do not have to pay the price that you bid. You will be awarded, and you win those shares. You'll be awarded those shares at 1 cent more, and you will be refunded the difference. So don't worry about that. Go out there and
going back a couple questions ago, Rick, when the guy asked about sort of favoriting and how to track guys, what I like to do is, come up with the target guys you want to target, whether that's 5 players, whether that's 10, whether that's 15 guys, and create sort of a target price in your mind. Buy 1 share of that golfer at your target price, and then they will all show up in your orders tab within the app. So you will kind of
Smart.
get your list narrowed down from 156 guys to maybe 12, and then you can monitor their current price versus what you bid, and it makes things a little easier to track as the night goes on and things get really hectic in the last 5-10 minutes.
There you go. That is a pro move right there. I love that. Let's get a market update and our plan, Joe, as we get closer to this IPO closing. Again, that's going to happen around 9 p.m. Eastern time or just before. I'm essentially going to cut you loose and you are just going to rock and roll. You're going to rock and roll on your app. And I'm just going to provide the commentary. I'm going to engage with the chat. And then after IPO closes, we are going to review all of the guys that you got. So I want you to pay attention as you go through those last couple minutes there, guys that you tried to get that you weren't able to, guys that you maybe got more of than you wanted to, all that stuff. Cause I'm certainly going to come back and ask you all about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to jump on a horse for the final leg of the race here. And you just call the final stretch like we're at the Kentucky Derby, because that's somehow how it feels at the last 5 minutes. It is wild. There are guys that fly up and down this leaderboard at a rapid rate. And the more people like you guys who are joining us here that jump on board makes it even more fun. So we're excited for it.
Okay, we haven't seen much movement in the IPO prices at the moment. That is obviously going to change, but I want to scroll down just a little bit and Sepp Straka has been catching so much steam this week. I feel like I've heard his name this week more than almost any other. He's currently sitting at $3.96, Joe. I don't know what to make of that, heads or tails.
Yeah, I like Sepp this week, but as he currently sits, so I have in a spreadsheet that I posted a link to it that's on our Preferred Lines website where I kind of gave every guy a target price in the field. I have a target price of 488 on him. We'll see if it gets that. At this point, it's looking like it's going to clear that a little bit, but I'm pretty high on Sepp this week. I just know that he can really make birdies in bunches, and it's going to take a lot of birdies this week. He's a guy that can play really well, in Birdie Fest. So we'll see.
My main man, Doc Redman here, $3.85. Joe, as you know, I've had the pleasure of being able to connect with Doc a handful of times over the course last year.
Yes.
He has described to me the type of course that he likes to play. He has described it to me very vividly as narrow fairways, a lot of, danger off the tee, and a course that rewards ball strikers. I'll tell you what, that's exactly how I would describe the stadium course. And Doc is sitting there at $3.85. He's had a couple of rough cash markets in his last 2 starts, but I'm thinking it might be a Doc week.
I think so too. I love Doc Redman. I've been playing him for a while in DFS. He won me a lot of money at the Wyndham. But Doc's my guy. I just feel, part of me feels like in this type of environment where, okay, so he's 90-1 on the odds boards, or was earlier this week. According to this Jock Market list here, he's like what you got him at, like the 10th, 11th guy down the board.
Yeah.
So I just feel like maybe his popularity has gotten to the point where it siphons a little bit of that value in this particular style format out of him. That said, I think there's a great price for him. I think he sets up great. I love kind of his style game on Jack Nicklaus golf courses that are very demanding off the tee. Like you said, narrow fairways, a lot of water, a lot of elevated greens and such to kind of play with. So we'll see. I'm very bullish on Doc in general in this season, and hope he plays well, man. He's your guy. I saw him on Instagram retweeting a little Rick Run Good this week. That little beat
I can't wait to have him on after he gets that first victory, and we can chat all about it. We can have a lot of fun.
Can we get him on here if he wins this week?
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. I got a name for you. And Joe, we talk all the time that there is a price for everyone and there's a price for everything. And that current price on Phil Mickelson is $2.42. Are you going to have any even remote interest in getting some Phil Mickelson shares?
Oh, man. We'll see where his price kind of floats around the next, he's like the tournament host, isn't he here?
Yeah. He is.
But I don't feel like this is a great setup for Phil. I just have so many concerns that I want to see him build and play well a little bit this is just kind of coming off his last event, I think was the Masters. So we haven't seen him in a while. There's a lot of unknowns with Phil. But yeah, there's a price for him. If he's in the $2, low $3 range, I think he could very well be a buy. I have a target on Phil of $4. So we'll see where he finishes.
Do you have a target on every single player or just notable guys?
I did. I put a target on every single player.
Okay. Got it. I like that. We are probably 12 to 13 minutes out from this IPO closing. So over the next 12 or 13 minutes, if you've never been a part of this before, get ready.
Yeah.
Strap in. This is going to be absolutely wild. We are still holding strong with Scotty Scheffler at $8.03. Tony Finau, Patrick, the two Patricks, and Brooks Koepka still rounding out the top five. I want to real quick before we kind of go into this home stretch here, I want to bring back, I want to pull back up a comment. And DFS Tavern, thanks for being here, says, how many players do you like to have in your portfolio each week? Now, I think this is a little bit of personal preference, Joe, how much risk you want to take, how much you want to spread it out, how many guys you're willing to do. But for you personally, is there a number, or is it just like, hey, some weeks I end up with 15 guys, some weeks I end up with 3, and or are you trying to actively get the same number each week?
There really isn't a number. I usually end up between 4 and 7, I would say, guys, just because I know there's a lot of people. It's just everyone has a different strategy, right? A lot of people like to get 2, 3, 4, 5 shares of a lot of different golfers, and that may work for them. I like to try and get a lot of shares of maybe less total players. So try and get 20, 25, 30 shares of different guys and maybe pick out 4 or 5 that I really target and like that week, but there's no set number. It's all personal preference.
I'm going to pull up the last page of our little tool here that no, you may not have access to, but I'm going to pull up the last page of it, and I'm going to get rid of this banner so that we can see it here. And I see some names that I know are popular, Joe, and I know they are not going to sit here at this number. First of all, Matt Jones, who I'm not a fan of because he gains about 1 million strokes putting last week, but he was T11 last. I guess I could just click it. Why am I speculating when I can literally click his name? Matt Jones. T11. So a 217% ROI last week. And now look at his 3 cash markets. The one cash market that he lost you, he only lost you 24%. That's not bad in the scheme of things with some of these guys. And the other 3, he's been either a big gainer or a massive gainer. So I know that number's not staying at $1, right?
Yeah, Matt Jones is slaying right now. Those are some big time numbers. A couple other guys on this page. One guy I wanted to ask you about making his first career start as a pro is John. How do you say it? Is it
Augenstein?
John Augenstein. We saw him at the Masters. He played awesome there. He's currently sitting at $1.73. Thoughts
there
on
he is. I was looking for him. So I don't know a lot about John Augenstein, but here's what I do know about him. He was the runner-up for low am at the Masters. He got beat out by Andy Ogletree, so that's probably where you've seen his name. He went out and he opened in a 3 under 69 at Augusta National before fading a little bit, but he still played great, made the cut, all that good stuff. He's out of Vanderbilt, All-American. Apparently, he's a pretty pure ball striker, okay? We've heard some reports about guys that he's played practice rounds with, and he's a great ball striker. And here's the thing I love most, Joe. John Augenstein loves him some John Augenstein. This guy is swag out to the max. He thinks when he steps on the golf course, he is the best player on the planet, which I'll tell you what, that works for some guys. I like the confidence. And at $1 and what is he now? $1.73. He doesn't have to do much to make you some money. So it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought him up.
Very true. Another guy that I kind of like in this particular setup at $1.70 range right now is Ryan Armour. He plays really well on some of these shorter tracks. He plays good on Nicklaus courses. He's a great Bermuda grass putter. He hits as many fairways as anybody on tour, and that was kind of the recipe we saw last year for a guy in a similar mold in Andrew Landry, who doesn't hit it a mile. He just basically hit every fairway and had 9 irons and wedges in that he stuffed in there tight and made those putts. So It looks like some decent returns for Ryan Armour there. Big pop at the Bermuda, and last week not too bad.
I think we spoiled John Augenstein for DFS
Oh
Tower.
no,
Sorry about that. No,
sorry, man.
Ryan Armour is interesting because there's probably four really good courses for him a year, and this is probably one of them. So I like that a lot. Some of these shorter hitters that are more exact off the tee is interesting, especially this week. And I want to go back to a comment that was made earlier, Joe. I think there's going to be huge returns on these guys that might end up $3.50 and cheaper because of the volatility of this event that we've seen in the past, where you've got a multiple course rotation. You have, especially on the stadium course, trouble hazards off the tee that can put up some really crooked numbers for some of these big name guys. It just enhances, really ratchets up that volatility. And I think these penny stocks, so to speak, are probably where I would want to be investing my money.
Totally. So it's interesting because, there's something about like when my friends come down here to Florida to golf, they always shoot higher than their handicap because there's so much water that they're not used to. So you hit it in the water and you're not just chipping out from the trees, you're dropping and you're losing a stroke there. Right? Like guys who hit fairways on courses where there is a good bit of water become all that much more valuable. I followed him like 2 years ago with the Honda when he was paired with Brooks in the final round, and he played really well with him, and he just is so consistent, hits every fairway. So guys like that are reliable. I think he's a good pick to make the cut this week, and if you get him at a good price, if he finishes in that top 40, you're probably paying back some decent ROI.
All right, we are starting to see some movement. We are within 10 minutes of this IPO closing. So don't tell me you forget when it's going to close. It's going to close just before 9 p.m. I think last week it closed around 8:58. So make sure you get those bids in there. And it is Scotty Scheffler and Patrick Cantlay that are now tied for the most expensive players. They are both $9. And then you have a pack of golfers in the sevens: Tony Finau, Russell Henley, and Patrick Reed. We have not even spent a single breath on Russell Henley in this show. I think we should pause for a second and do just that, because what you see from him, the T11 at the Sony, which returned 27% ROI, then these two finishes at the Zozo and the CJ Cup, over 200% ROI each. He is, he was stuck in neutral a bit on Sunday at the Sony, but he didn't do anything wrong. You just can't par your first 12 holes at Waialae and expect to win. So no surprise to see that Russell Henley in the mix here as one of the most expensive golfers at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the guys just below him, Rick, I wanted to ask you and get your thoughts on. What about Matthew Wolff this week? We haven't talked about him. We haven't seen him in a little while. It was so hot last year and then kind of ended on a little bit of a downward spiral. Do you expect him to come out of the stretch hot?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, what we saw from him over the last 6 months, even in the last couple of weeks, were not good. Look at his returns at the end of the year. He was a loser in the CJ Cup, the Zozo Championship, and the Masters. All of them. He was a loser in, and he's a popular player. So he's good. His IPO to be inflated, but I think this is a really good spot for him. He is, of course, a weapon, a bomber off the tee. He putts it better than I think a lot of people want to believe, and he makes a lot of birdies. And you're going to have to make a lot of birdies this week.
Cool.
All right, Joe. Is
All
it
right.
time? Should I cut you?
I'm going to get rolling here. I'm going to get rolling.
All right. So here's what's going to happen. Joe's going to get to work. Joe is going to get to work right now. He's got his phone up. We're going to actually have him share his screen after we get out of this IPO phase, but we want Joe to be able to really rock and roll on some of these bids. So I'm just going to kind of walk us through this. I would like to interact with the chat, so join me so that I'm not just talking to myself over here, and we can go through the final few minutes of this jock market for the American Express. There is going to be a lot of movement. Make sure to get your bids in early and often. Make sure to have your notifications turned on and start targeting those golfers. As Joe mentioned before, even getting get one share in on a golfer so that when you are outbid, you are made aware of that. Click on the activities tab. Make sure that you are paying attention to everything. Let me give you a quick update on where we stand in the jock market. And if you have not decided to join the jock market yet, what are you doing? What is going on? Join, use the promo code, the deposit code, POWER20, $20. That will get you a couple of shares of Scotty Scheffler at this very moment because he's currently $9 at the top of the board. Let me give you a quick update here. Scotty Scheffler, $9. I think we saw Webb Simpson, the most expensive golfer last week. He finished at $12.50. Will Scotty Scheffler finish below or above $12.50? We are going to find out. Patrick Cantlay is certainly going to give him a threat at $9, and we are still holding strong with Tony Finau as the third most expensive golfer. Notably, Brooks Koepka, since he was mentioned at the top of the show, has not moved off of this price, and I'll give it a refresh in a second. But when we talked about Brooks Koepka about 30 minutes ago, he was $5.55. Now he's $5.58. 3 cents. He's gone up 3 cents in 30 minutes. That's a good deal, but it's not going to last long. Paul Casey flying up the leaderboard. I'm going to put a refresh in real quick, and I'm going to let Joe get right after all of these picks. Here we go. I want to make sure I have the most up-to-date data. And we're back. Sung J M up to $6. I saw Sepp Straka jump over $5. I see Sam Burns trying to crack through this number. There are probably 2 or 3 minutes left in this IPO. If you want to get some shares of Sam Burns, who I know had a T7 in Houston, I know he had a T7 at Safeway. I know he's got 2 finishes here at this event, 18th and 6th. Now's the time to get in. JG points out he just went from 8 owned golfers to 1. Yes, the jock market is heating up. You like that?
Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I think Joe is stealing your guys from you. Get back in there and bid. Don't let Joe beat you because you know it's going to happen. Sam Burns, the guy that I was mentioning, he is flying up the board. We're still holding strong on Scotty Scheffler. We are probably 2-ish minutes away from this closing. Joe's palms probably getting a little bit sweaty at the moment, trying to figure out what's going on. Hopefully he's got enough power. Hopefully he's got the internet all set up, ready to rock and roll. Here's a couple of interesting ones. $4.15 a piece for a couple of course history buffs. Adam Hadwin, who has shot a 59 at La Quinta, at $4.15 right now. He has no recent form. So whoever's bidding him up obviously loves the course history. Adam Long has won this event in the past. He won this at 500 to 1. Imagine what that return would have been. He's been great in the jock market his last 3 events. He has returned 279, 81, and 286%. He's playing well. He's going back to a place where he's had a heck of a lot of success. Dylan Davis points out that the secret is out on John Augenstein. He's up to $3 in the jock market. I see Matt Jones has crossed over $3 as well. So we are seeing movement from the bottom of the board. But from as far as I can tell, we've had no movement at the top of the board. I'm still looking at this and seeing Scotty Scheffler and Patrick Cantlay stuck in mud at the $9 mark. I'm assuming I am up to date. We're going to get confirmation on that shortly. But our IPO is on the verge of closing. And we're closed. Okay. Let me take a breath here. Ooh, doggy.
Oh, man.
How was that, Joe? Just give us, don't tell us who you got or what, but just tell us how that went.
That went, I think, very well. It's always this little bit of waiting period. So when your orders are in and your bid is the exact amount that the price closes at, you don't always get those total amount of shares. So it's always sort of a guessing game and a little bit of anxiety until it goes from orders into your holdings tab to know exactly how many of those processed and went through at your price, particularly when you're the low bidder. So I'm waiting for those to refresh now, and I can load up my screen here in a second so you guys can all kind of follow along. But okay. I spent some money.
All right, so we're gonna have Joe fire up his screen. We're gonna talk through his shares, but there are I've got the tool available here, and it's Patrick Cantlay who finishes as the most expensive golfer at an even $10. So if you're thinking about the payouts, which I'll put at the bottom of the board, so if you're in for $10, that essentially says you think that Patrick Cantlay is going to finish 8th or better. Because 8th place is $10, 7th would be $11, and 9th would be $9.50. So you're saying Patrick Cantlay is going to finish inside the top 10. Scotty Scheffler, I'm actually pretty surprised that Scheffler was 2, Henley was 3 in terms of the most expensive golfers. Wow. And your guy, Brooks Koepka, $8.12. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 golfers that are more expensive or in at the close of IPO than one Mr. Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, it was hard. I ended up passing on Brooks. I did have a bid on him in at one point and got outbid. But it was tough for me, man, because I don't like to let Brooks slide. I'm a big guy in his camp, but I believe I was like at $8 and ended up losing those shares. But I think he's pretty accurately priced. I'm just not real. I feel like this is one of those weeks where Brooks is really there to figure out his game, right? And to get things geared up for the upcoming season. We know he said it best. He's in this for the majors and the big tournaments, and he only wants first place. So if he's finishing around, if he barely makes the cut, some of these tournaments that are birdie fest too, I also don't love for Brooks as well.
Yeah, the harder the conditions, the better for Brooks, in my opinion. We're seeing some shares come through the chat here. I just misclicked it. It was $4.80 for Patton Kazire. So that's tackle the board NFL.
My guy Chad loves him some Kazire.
Oh yeah, is he because he's a Kazire guy?
He's been crushing with Kazire in the markets.
Here we go. Brett got 3 shares of Akshay Bhatia at $2.10. 1 of Ricky Fowler. There is some FOMO Ricky Fowler shares out there, and 2 of John Augenstein. So those certainly have some ability to get going. Let me see. What did Augenstein close at?
Yeah, what did he close at?
$3 even.
Okay.
So he closed at 3 even. So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to do much, right? So let me pull up what his fair value payout would be, but he doesn't have to do much here. And we're gonna pull up your. You're getting trolled in the chat there. You're a thief. You stole Malnati. Apparently, is that true? Did you take Malnati from Scott Stewart?
No, Scott, ease up on me. All right. I think I ended up with all right. So I initially took Malnati, but I ended up with 1 share of him. So only my original share. So ease up, Stu. It wasn't me, buddy. Rest assured. But it looks like around $3, he's going to need to finish in like 51st. So he's going to need to make the cut and then finish, 20. Or actually, it's even less now. So probably 10 spots inside the cup, and you'll get a little return on your action there on Augenstein. I like that.
There you go. All right, Joe. The people want to see what your portfolio looks like. How are we looking over there?
Go ahead. We are all set up on
share
my end.
Share your screen with me.
Okay. Let me see here.
Stand by. We're gonna get Joe's screen right up here. Brady's got 25 shares of Brian Gay, 5 on Hoffman, Percy, and Gooch. Okay, I see your screen now, Joe. So
okay, let's bring it up.
Let's get my screen out of here.
I may have overextended myself a little bit this week, but last week. So here's the thing, Rick. Last week I felt like I didn't end up with enough, and I didn't get enough of my guys that I wanted. So this week I may be a little bit overextended, but we'll see how things go. If I lose too bad, the Jock Market guys are they may need to help me out a little bit here.
All right, so let me just see if I can describe what I see from Joe's portfolio here. Which, by the way, charge your phone, Joe. My goodness, you're so close to you're on red right now. Are you crazy?
Look, we only got a couple minutes left. I'm gonna make it.
Sung J M 20. So
this is very much
shares.
These guys are. This is like Team RickRunGood.
This is my team. Yeah. Oh my god. I love all of these guys. Oh, wow. Okay, so talk me through this. I see 27 shares of Sung JM at $8.75 a piece. I obviously like that. He was a guy that I thought was a good bounce back opportunity. You got him at $8.75, which I think was cheaper than what he was last week. So I think this is a pretty good bounce back opportunity. And I think you're on board in the same vein that I am, in which you are not, Sung Jae rarely is going to hit the ball as poorly as he did last week. He's not going to do that 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and he's just one of those guys to me that I feel like when he gets really, really popular, he's just you can't play him. And this week I felt like he maybe had gone a little bit under the radar while still playing pretty well the last 2 weeks. I think he had his best round on Sunday of the Sony, where he finally kind of got things together. Good setup for him with a lot of par fives. You have the Nicklaus courses. Obviously, he just got his win at the Honda, which is also a Jack Nicklaus course with a lot of water and a tough closing stretch. So a little bit of similarities there. I just like his talent and his upside, and he finished 5th down the list here, and I think he's going to finish okay for me.
Doc Redmond, 28 shares of Doc, who is someone we spent a lot of time on. So I don't think we have to spend much more. $6.50. You're not going to get any arguments from me. Cam Davis, 20 shares. I love the raw Aussie. How do you feel about him?
Love Cam Davis. I just think, look, I just like the way he plays the game. And even last week, he's so aggressive, even on some of these shorter courses. Like, he was not afraid to pull driver anywhere and everywhere last week at the Sony. And it's kind of a little bit of a boom or a bust thing, but I think his potential and his ascension through the rankings, pair that with sort of his current form and what he's been building on recently, I think he's a great buy here. Like, he had 150 yards into some of those par fives last week, and there was only 2 of them, which is basically a wedge for him. And we're loaded with par fives and eagle opportunities this week. As just a reminder that Jock Market scoring is based on fantasy scoring. So those eagles are going to be big. I think he can make a couple of them this week for me.
Michael Van Veen says his first time holding 100 plus shares. Come on, top 20s. Love it. Michael, good luck this week. Scrolling down a little bit, Joe, and before we do that, actually, was there anyone you really wanted that you didn't get?
Yeah, so I wanted Tony Finau. He just got too expensive for me. And gosh, I'm scared that I'm going to regret taking Brooks, but I'm just going to try to ignore that I missed out on him. But one guy that I really wanted that I didn't end up getting as much on, kind of interestingly, and I originally had 45 shares of down here on the list, was Robbie Shelton. I just think that he played well, and I liked his price this week. I think I got him at an average cost of $2.55. He's returning a little bit of value now, but that's not worth anything. But I just think he's in for a top 30, top 40 this week and can return some profit there.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about that. Like, so that immediately after IPO close, so those numbers that you're seeing right there, that value, that obviously this event has not started yet, right? So this is essentially, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to think the best way to describe this. It is the price that Joe paid versus what that golfer's fair value was before the tournament started. And the difference, so if Joe paid less than the fair value, he is showing a natural built-in value immediately as IPO closes. If he paid more than the fair value, like he did on Peter Malnati by a couple of cents, but it's a good illustration there, he would have paid more than the fair value. So that is what you're seeing, and it kind of gives you an idea of maybe the way you felt about a golfer versus the way the Jock Market algorithm calculation felt about it.
100%. You explained that to a T. So basically what it is I'm creating a target price for these golfers. And oftentimes it's not, there's 156 guys you got to rank. So oftentimes it's not aligning with where Jock Market priced them. So when you see that I overpaid for a guy, like Sung J M, for instance, that's because they had him initially ranked much lower than I did. I actually think that price I paid of $8.75 was just under the target price that I had him. I had him at $9. So I'm happy there. I feel like that's going to return some money. And all these numbers are going to sort themselves out as soon as this thing kicks off and we get moving and these guys start making some birdies.
For sure. They are, they don't mean anything, but it is one of the questions I get a lot. That's like, oh my God, IPO just closed. How am I losing money? Let it all shake out. Your target price is probably a lot different than what Jock Market had in mind. So I see shares of Russell Knox. I see shares of Martin Laird, and then one share piece of Ryan Armour and Mr. Hall, who is I did a live chat earlier today, and his name's Harry Hall, right? I wanted to call him Henry Hall. Harry Hall was probably the most asked about golfer at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, and I had no answers for it. I'm like, I don't know much about the guy, but
I knew nothing about him either. So Chad and I show on Monday, we had Skylar on, and Skyhook DFS is like the man for finding these gems out of nowhere and the new up and coming guys. He mentioned Harry Hall to me, so I initially threw a share out earlier today and forgot to bid more on him as things got hectic down the stretch.
Martin Laird, and I'm going to try to pull this up. He might be the most He might have the record in terms of Jock Market cash markets of
Show it
highest
to me,
ROI.
baby.
I'm gonna try to find it. While I do that, talk me through. So you've got shares of Knox, you've got shares of Laird here.
Yeah. Just guys that I had targeted. So I took my full list and I narrowed it down to like 15 guys. And these guys were initially people that I had targeted. So I paid $3.10 for Marty Laird there. I had a target on Marty Laird, let me see here, of $3.30, which essentially means that he's got to finish in 48th or better. So he played really well at the Century, obviously coming off a win at the Shriners there, which I kind of, this is the old desert classic. I kind of think of the Shriners in the desert. I think of Waste Management in the desert, two courses that he plays great at, and is always very popular. So I liked Marty Laird this week.
Okay, is that the end of your
Yes,
list
that's
there?
it.
Okay,
That's it.
so you mentioned Tony Finau is potentially a guy that you wish you got. Sometimes I find myself getting guys that I maybe didn't mean to. Right? You put a bid in
Yeah.
because you think it might be a good price. Did that happen to you at all? Did you put any feelers out there and end up with those guys?
So real thrilled about Grillo. Just because he's one of those guys that I'm never on, but $4.25. I had a higher target on him. He normally scores pretty well in fantasy type formats. He's going to have to finish in the top 40 to return that. I feel okay about it, but he would be the one that if I could take it back and sort of remove them and I find a good, nice bid price on someone, I may get rid of some of those shares and dump them. One guy that I was looking for that I just the price got too high for me on, but I really liked this week was Charlie Hoffman. Finished at $4.85. I was hoping he was going to be a little bit more than that and come in the $3 range and I could pounce. But he's the guy that I kind of missed there, I would say.
He was phenomenal off the tee last week. He was phenomenal on approach. He lost strokes around the green and putting, so not surprising to see
Sure.
that Charlie Hoffman was a bit popular. He finished at $4.85, which is it's still a pretty good deal, but there's some wiggle room in there. Okay, so Donnie Baseball says, I'm not thrilled on Grillo or Knox, but at those prices had to, which I'll tell you what feels like I've heard that before, right? It's like, oh, we got to this price point and I had to do it. I love it. Joe.
Yes.
We will start this tournament in a couple of days. Now, so let me kind of mine into that Emiliano Grillo. Are you going to try to get off him early, or are you now in this for the long run? Like someone who maybe you weren't super stoked ended up in your portfolio.
Yeah, so I'm going to closely monitor the bid price. So when you pull up your app and your holdings, you will see a bid price under every golfer. If there is a current bid out there that someone at a price, basically the highest price that anyone out there on the app is willing to pay. Now, that could be for one share. That could be for all of your shares. You don't really know until you kind of accept that bid, but I will closely sort of monitor his pricing. And if I feel like there's a good time to jump off, but I'm more, I like to let it ride a little bit, me personally. So I'll probably see how things shake out early with him. He's usually a quick starter, Grillo, on the first day, and tends to fade as the weekend comes, as we know. So maybe there will be an opportunity there later tomorrow afternoon or evening to jump ship. But as of now, he's a hold.
Yeah, you might sever ties on the weekend. That's usually when Grillo tends to fall off. Okay, quick housekeeping items. Howard 20, that's your code. That's your promo code. Go get your free $20 deposit bonus. Buy a couple extra shares of golfers and join us in this stock market DFS, which Joe, we've been saying that this is getting more popular. We've been saying this is something that could really disrupt fantasy sports. And listen, we talk a lot about golf. I know people like basketball. I know people like football. Those jock markets are available as well, which is also crazy. And not just what we've been saying, but with the note that we got today that how quickly that jock market got from $1 million traded to 2, how much faster it was than the first million. It almost validates some of the things that we were saying. What we were saying was not hyperbole, I guess is what I want to say.
100%. I'll be interested to see how quickly they hit that next million and where those numbers are at by the time we get to this year's Masters. We'll just wait and see, but appreciate all you guys for playing. I know a lot of people have reached out or have had a ton of fun and good experience with the app so far. So I know that people out there enjoy it. Use that promo code, sign up, and come back and join us every Wednesday. We'll be here.
Same time next week. That is Joe Idoni. You can follow him on Twitter. Highly recommended at 4Picks. Also, great preferred lines, a pod, and hat, dude. My goodness. What a good looking hat you have on.
Thank you, man.
You can follow me at RickRunGood. This has been the Jock Market Power Hour for this week's American Express. Best of luck. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Ton of fun. Peace.